volunteering somebody? Hey, Peter. Okay, I want you to notice something. When you pull the cap off, okay, there is something you're supposed to make out of the clay, okay, and I need you to do it in about a minute. Okay. All right, I need 3 more volunteers. Okay. I can't hold on to me. Okay, somebody else? Over here? Okay. Just pass it down. This is just popping up. One more. One more volunteer.
Hey, Ron.
One more volunteer.
Ron.
All right. Okay. All right. All right. You know, for holiday weekend, it's kind of fun to play with Play-Doh. You know, I mean, it's kind of different. That's why we're doing it with this service. But I want you to just look at this stuff. Okay. Y'all got another thing yet? Babies are sometimes hard to come out too, so. But we're looking at families, and particularly today, parenting. Let's see if we can get that Home Sweet Homes series. And this morning we're looking at parenting. It's more than just kidding around. Would y'all agree? But when we stop and think about what's parenting like, what are our kids like, we realize that when they come into our world, they are soft and very easily mold, right? I mean, you can just make all kinds of shapes out of this kind of stuff. But after time, as they grow up 12, 14, 16, 18, they become what we've shaped them to become. And so we're going to look at some shapes here. Okay, all right, let's do this real quick. Okay, so is everybody ready? Laura, you ready? Okay, stand up and tell me what you were supposed to make. Stand up. Oh, it was on the sheet. There's a piece of paper. Oh, there was. It probably fell out. Okay. There it is. There it is. Okay. You get an F because you didn't do it. Okay. What's it say? A car. Okay, she was supposed to make a car out of this. Okay. Do it real fast and let's see what you. Who else had one? Okay, Daniel, what'd you make? Hold it up and let's see if we can figure out what it is. Okay, anybody know what that is? Okay, it's a pair that. Do they have numbers on them? Oh, you needed some help. Okay, let's give him a hand. That looks really good. Okay, next one. All right, what do we have right here? What do we have? An animal. Hold it up and let's see if we can tell what animal it is.
Looks like a stingray to me.
It's a bird. It's a bird. Oh, right. Oh, can y'all tell what it is? Very good. All right. Okay, back here, Kristen.
And a Christian.
Kristen had, it said Christian, and she makes a cross. Okay? Okay. We'll come back to this one. One more. Peter, what did you do? I know this one. Okay. What is this? Hold it up. What is that? Anybody know what that is?
Looks like a baby.
It's a baby! Very good! Okay, how about the car? We done with the car? Yes, it is. Peter. Yeah. Give them all a hand. Okay, let's come back to Kristen here then. And hers was Christian. And I did that purposely. I thought, okay, whoever's going to get this is going to be scratching their head because a Christian is more than just a form. Wouldn't you agree? And it takes a lifetime. And so that's what we're looking at this morning. Parenting is more than just kidding around. It's more than just an outward form. It is something that God shares with us in His Word, something that He desires. So y'all can keep with these as long as you don't play with them in church, okay? After church, you can play with them in your car going home and all that kind of stuff in church. Okay, I'm going to put that right there. All right. So let's look at our scripture this morning. And we've been looking at Psalms 127 as our core verse for Home Sweet Home, where it says, unless the Lord builds the house, its laborers build in vain. In other words, there's a lot of things we realize we can plug into our kids, plug into our homes, but unless we have the Lord by our side, we're laboring in vain. And I think He is looking at an eternal perspective here. Okay? He's looking at eternity. It all falls apart. It all comes down if the Lord hasn't been in it. Sort of like the Plaza Hotel this week. How many of you were there at that? You know, it was amazing to me that hotel, I don't know, I'm guessing it took a year to build all that up, you know, and it went up by degrees, and you'd see a floor going up and walls and all that stuff, you know, by degree, by degree, by degree. And that whole thing came down like in 6 or 7 seconds. I mean, it was just nothing. And I think that's what the Lord is reminding us here. Unless the Lord builds our house, unless we have Him involved, then when eternity starts, those who did not program God, it's just gone that fast. And we realize what bad decisions that we made. But verses 3 and 5 ties in the whole family. Look what it says. Sons are a heritage from the Lord, children a reward from Him, and blessed is this man whose quiver is full of them. So we realize God is telling us something about the whole family. Number one, God likes the family. He has blessed the family when we put Him in charge. And that's what we want to look at today as we tie this whole series up as we look at God. Ephesians 1:6-4 says, Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. So, God is telling us something through this whole series, okay? We have been looking at this idea of being a family, of being good husbands, being good wives, and today of being good parents and being good children, okay? And the one thing that we realize that we're to do for all this is, number one, we are to be submissive to one another. And God is instructing us on those areas where we are weak and strengthening those areas. And notice He is telling us in verse 18 of chapter 5, He says, be full of the what? Spirit. In other words, He says, I've given you my Spirit to help you accomplish these things. So that's what we're looking at. And so this first idea that we're looking at is that God has given us tips for being a great family. Now let me see something. I think I've got something out of line. Hold on. Yeah, somehow I missed something. Okay. I missed that first point. I don't know where it is. Tips for being a great family is what He has shared for us. And so He's telling us here with the scripture that He has given to us that we need to have a goal in mind. Because our world, if we don't have a goal in mind as we're raising our children and for parenting, guess who's going to shape our children? The world is. And the television is. And everybody else is going to shape our child. And so God says, wait a minute, that's not the way I want Christian parents to raise their kids. The world is not neutral. It tries to squeeze us into its mold. 3 years ago, there was a television program on, a reality show about a family. It was called John and Kate Plus 8. I mean, you saw that, some of that. Okay, I didn't even watch it. But in the opening series for 2009, they were starting to have marital problems there between John and Kate. And so the announcer there talking to them asked Kate what she was going to do. And here's what she says. She says, my goal is this. I'm here for the kids. I want them to be happy, healthy, safe, and loved. Now, I don't know about you, but when you stop and think about that, those are kind of some important things, aren't they? To be happy. You know, everybody wants their kids to be happy, to be healthy. Yeah, we're for that. Take them to the doctor, make sure they don't get in a place where they can hurt themselves. To be safe and to be loved. All of those things sound normal. Most parents would say, yeah, that's my focus too. We want our focus to be, to get our kids into school, for them to do well in school, for them to have sports, if they want to have good friends, grow up, get a good career, have a nice safe home eventually. But you know what's interesting is, as we look at the Bible, we don't find that those are biblical goals. Now notice something, I'm not saying the Bible is against us being happy. That's not what we're saying at all. But God's number one concern for us is to make disciples of our kids, to make them desire Him. Matthew 20:18 says, therefore go and make disciples. Now you remember where Jesus tells us to go? Where's He tell us to go in that scripture? Everybody know? Therefore go and make disciples where? Into all the world. Yeah, you start at home with your kids. Okay? That's where it all starts. So he's telling us that we are to make disciples. And so, number one, we need to realize, the goal of all families is parental discipleship. Parents, train your kids about God in His Word. That is so important. Use all those opportunities for God. You know, it's interesting that we see in our world today, particularly the sports world, all the involvement that it takes, the trophies that kids win, you know, for winning games and all those kinds of things. It's interesting. God doesn't tell us in the Word to be involved in sports and get trophies on our walls for our glory. He tells us to do those things, to be involved in people's lives for His glory. Amen? I mean, those opportunities, the sports team gives us opportunity to share our values and our convictions and what we believe with other kids so that they know what it means to follow Jesus Christ as Lord. That's what those opportunities for. And that's the way we need to shape and think about the families that God has given to us. So let's look at our text then. That was tips to being a family. We are to be discipling our families. Bring them to God. Live for God. The second thing that our text reminds us is tips to being a great kid. How many kids do I have in here? Not many, do I? Most of them are in there. Okay. Now, you know, whether we're old kids or young kids, what God tells us is just so eye-opening and so aware to think about the great God that we have, the concern that He has for us. And so here's what He says in verses 1 to a kid. The first thing that He says is, obey. Children, obey your parents. Now, think with me, where in the Bible do we see a verse similar to that? Somebody tell me. Old Testament, and it's the Ten Commandments. Very good, very good. It's in the Ten Commandments that we learn this. Honor, children, honor. 5, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you know, stop and think about it. Why is God telling children this? Now, there is a sense here in which parents are teaching their children to obey, but this is addressed to children. Obey your parents. In other words, God expects some listening there. And to tell you the truth, isn't obeying hard for all of us? Right? We need God's help to learn to obey and to do what it is that our parents and those in authority over us want us to do. You must learn to obey. The word obey means to listen under. Okay. So what it is telling us is that the idea there is when a parent tells a kid to do something, that kid is to listen and do. Okay? To be responsible. That like, do what your parents ask you to do. That comes from God. Parents all want that to be true, but it comes from God. That's where the authority is. So children, please God, obey your parents. The second thing that He tells us here is to honor their parents. So we realize that a tip for a kid is to know that God says you are to honor your parents. Now again, going back to the Ten Commandments. The fifth commandment, okay, is where that commandment is. Now, I don't know about you, but when I learned the Ten Commandments, you know, there's the first 4 that deal with God. Remember that? You know, they talk about God, you know, God's to be first. Don't make any idols. Remember the Sabbath day. Keep it holy. Don't take God's name in vain. Okay, I got them out of order just a little bit there. But we look at those 4. And then number 5 comes in. Children, obey your parents and Lord, for this is long. We're going to have a long life and those kind of things. And so usually we say from 5 to 10 is about people. 1 to 4 is about God. 5 to 10 is about people. But the Jews looked at it in a different way. They looked at this 5th commandment as really a commandment about God. Respecting God, who has put parents over children. Now, isn't that interesting? They saw that authority as learning the authority of God through parents. So, learn to honor, recognize parents' worth, their value, because they're providing and sacrificing and caring. Now, parenting is an amazing thing. Sometimes we can get on a guilt trip because we realize that we're not all that we want to be. or need to be. But does this command say, honor your parents if they're perfect? Does it say that? It doesn't, does it? And that's an amazing thing because God realizes that, and He's aware of that. And He just says, honor. And it requires faith to believe that somehow God can use imperfect people like parents to help shape us into people that He wants us to be. And so what He is reminding us there is our experience in growing up and honoring our parents, giving them the value that is due them, honoring them is a good barometer of how much we are growing in the faith like Christ. So honor, obey, and honor. And then the third thing is, He says, you must learn to wait. No, not a kid. No, wait. And he says do this because down the road, God has incredible blessings for your life. There have been people who have gone out there and studied Christian families, non-Christian families, children raised up in the Lord and believing in God. And what's interesting is they have discovered Christian families that believe and practice what the Bible says. Those families tend to have less anxiety, less health issues, do live long lives, and tend to be more well-adjusted than their counterparts. Isn't that amazing? God is telling us to trust Him, and He will bless us in incredible ways. And so that's tips for kids. Then He tells us there's some tips to being a great parent. And I like what He says here in Ephesians verse 4. He says, fathers, and I'm sure it applies to moms. I'm just sure it applies to moms too, okay? But and he was running out of paper and had to leave out the mom part. I don't know. But he says, don't exasperate your kids. Now that's always a cool one for a kid to pull out. You're exasperating me when you're really in trouble and you know you deserve it, that kind of thing. But I like that word. Don't exasperate your kids. Because there's always a time when a parent feels like they want to just wash their hands of kids, not paying attention to them. Doesn't seem to be working anyway. And maybe tighten the screws down, on their lives, Just keep them in that room until they're 18 and then let them go. I mean, we get to that point. And God is reminding us of that. It says, don't exasperate your kids. Realize, now here's the important part. Realize they're my kids that you're taking care of. Did you get that? They're my kids. And you're taking care of them. I'm letting you shape and form them in the way that I desire them to be. So don't exasperate them. Instead, here's what I want you to do. I want you to teach and guide them. Instruct them. Interesting word that's used there. It is the word that is sort of like this. When I was a kid, my dad would grow lots of tomatoes. I still grow tomatoes today. They didn't have cages then like we do now, My dad would go out and he would cut willow branches that are about that big around. He would drive them down in the ground, right beside the tomato, and the tomato would grow up beside it. The tomato plant would grow right up beside it. And then as it would grow, guess what he would do? He would take strips of cloth, and tie it around so that plant would grow right up the stick. Now what was valuable about that is when the tomatoes would come on, they wouldn't hang on the ground, and the worms get them, the slugs get them, and all of those kinds of things. They would be up high, ready to pick, ripen in the appropriate way that they should, and they were just, that's the way you did it. You even have to do that in cages today, because those vines go out and you got to tie them back up into the cages. It was that kind of idea of training and instructing them in the way that they should go. And so that's what He is telling parents to do. So let's look at some important things. He is reminding us here that we need to give guidance more than control. Now, control, particularly when a kid is important, instructions about how they are to live their lives, giving them guidelines, giving them rules is important. The Bible reminds us those things are important because it removes foolishness from the kid. Proverbs 22. It rescues them from judgment. Proverbs 23. It gives them, and they are able to receive wisdom by proper discipline. Proverbs 29. It relieves your anxiety Proverbs 29, and it reflects God's character, Hebrews 12. But God is reminding us to guide. To guide. The second thing we see is that in the raising of children, He wants us to be building conviction more than rule keeping. You know, you can make lots of rules, but as kids grow up, guess what they do with those rules? They hate rules. Let's just say, one of the ones that I see around here, okay, that I hear and I use it too, you know, is don't run in the church! The rule! And so you'll see kids doing it. And so when they hear that, what are they thinking? Oh no, God hates running, and I love running. See, they don't have a basis. They don't understand why is that rule important. And so how do you build it so they understand? How do you build conviction in them? What you do is you pull them aside and say, you know what? When you're running, you may run into one of our people here, you know, and knock them over. Or it may be somebody who has a cup of coffee, and they're going to spill it if you run into them because they're not looking for you, so sure, or whatever, you know. Build conviction. And why do we do this? Why do we do communion? You know, hey, that looks like a fun drink. Can I have some of that Kool-Aid? No, wait a minute. You need to understand what that's all about. And there will come a time in your life when you give your life to Jesus Christ and you realize He died for you. Are you ready to die for Him? Whoa, that's what you got to know to drink that stuff? Yeah, that's what you got to know. You build a conviction and a belief and an understanding so that it becomes theirs, not yours. It becomes a conviction, not just a rule. And so that you model more than command. In other words, they see in you what it is you're telling them. You know, it's easy to tell kids things, command it to be done, but if they don't see it in you, it's hard. You know, God in the Old Testament said something very interesting. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. Here's what He says. He says, these are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God, and so that you may enjoy a long life. So notice God is saying here for the ancient Israelites, I have a plan for you. Follow it, you're going to have a long life. And then here's what He says. Here's how to do this plan. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road. When you lie down and when you get up, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. In other words, He's saying this. You model what you want your kids to do. That's what He's telling them. You do it diligently. Notice He says you do it morning and night, day after day, 24/7. Did you catch that? He didn't say, hey, let the church take care of it, you know, one day a week, and you do whatever you want to do. That's not what He's saying. He says, you parents take the responsibility to do this diligently. And you know, we here at such a Christian church, we take our kids to the special room to teach them the Bible, but if you don't, listen, if it doesn't come from home, it won't stick here. You understand that? He says, do it repeatedly. Do it naturally. When they get up in the morning, remind them God loves them. Share a verse of Scripture with them. When they go to bed at night, remind them of your love and God's love for them and the marvelous day that God created, and maybe share some of the things God did in that day naturally. If you're living it, it comes natural. And then He says, do it personally. You do it. You do it. We have a memory verse for our kids every Sunday when they come out, and they have a card. Now, if you're going to do it this way, what you're going to do is say to your kid, you know what? These things are important. These memory verses are important. Let's go over them together. You know, that tends not to be what we do. Our kids come home from school. Okay, you got your science homework done? Yes. Got your math homework done? Yes. We're enforcing that we want to do that. But when it comes to Scripture, or Sunday school, or church things, well, do you want to do it or not? What are we saying? decisions that you want to. That's not what God's telling Christian parents to do. Let me close with this. Barrett Johnson, family minister at Johnson Ferry Church, did a survey of kids, teens. And so he had this one question, and the teens responded. And here's was his question. He says, what is your parents' passion? Okay? Just write it down, turn it in. And so here are some of the responses he got. In other words, he was looking at the minds of the kids to see, where are your families? Where are they leading you? How are they shaping you? First one. Mom is passionate about buying stuff to make our life better. Had a shopper there. And so he was getting his impression about life was all about. Notice she's a servant, no doubt about that. But notice the focus is upon what? Stuff. Here's another one. My mom loves reading, Bible study, that's good, and running, but she hates to iron. That's just kind of a fun one in there. One wrote, Dad is passionate about the stock market and anything that has to do with money. Now, what's interesting is, I bet if these parents were asked, how are you shaping your child? They would have never thought their child was reading these things from them. Would you agree? But this is what the children are seeing their passion about. Here was another one. Dad is passionate about his job. It's what he has always wanted to do, and he likes it very much. And so we see his passion there is about his job. Another kid wrote, Mom wants to be popular. Isn't it interesting? Here's another one. Dad's passion is football. He never misses one of my games. Watches all the NFL football games. And so the kids picked up on that. Now let me ask you, I wonder if the dad says the same thing and shows the same interest in spiritual life. Two more here. Says, Mom only talks about God when she is mad at us. I don't want to go into what that means, but isn't it interesting when she pulls that kind of stuff out? And then the last one here. It's going to be a good one. Here's what this person says, this kid. Says, both my parents are very passionate about the Lord, because they are always talking about Him to each other and to us. I am sure that that's what all of those parents, because they were church kids, I'm sure that's what all those parents thought. They were teaching and training their kids, but that last one had it, right? And those others were somewhat lacking. And so as we come to this end of this message, Home Sweet Home, the end of this series, what would your kids say, moms and dads, is your passion? What are they picking up about you and your life? This morning we come to invitation time, and God gives us an incredible time to reshape and change our lives because of the incredible grace that He has upon us. But it's one of those things that we have to choose to do. We have to choose to say, Lord, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to make a difference. I didn't realize that I'd go, of course. So please, Lord, mold me